This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, as most of you are aware, and this is just a moment or two of review. First of all, if you are wanting CEUs for today's hour presentation, um, at the end of today's presentation, within the next 30 days, if you send to Bakersfield ARC, to either Valerie or Irene, uh, the three things that you learned today, and they can just be very brief, just a sentence or two, saying, this is what I got out of this presentation, then we can go ahead and give you the credit. Also, if there is more than one person from your agency that's on this, so that they're sitting in the room with you or what have you, we need to know who everybody is who's on it if they want continuing education. We're only giving continuing education to the people that we can actually see on uh, the names on the screen or in the chat. And again, like I say, sending to us the three items that you learned today so that we can know that you actually did sit through it and, we're just have the screen on and we're taking notes on something else or doing your I know many of you are like overwhelmed with responsibilities and job responsibilities and what have you. So we want to make sure that you actually are focusing on what we're talking about today. I see a few more people are joining in. And again, for CEUs, you need to submit a brief statement about what you learned today and send that to Bakersfield ARC. Attention to either Valerie or Irene. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. As many of you know, that the home and community-based waiver option or final rule, as it's called, came about in 2014 after some public hearings and some proposed regulation. It was finalized in 2014. Initially, it was supposed to become uh, finalized in 2019. Everybody was supposed to be in full compliance. When the Trump was elected president the first time around, his Health and Human Services director said these are very complex regulations. It's going to take more time for people to become compliant. So they shifted it to 2021. Then what occurred in 2020 is we had the pandemic, and that sort of delayed it even more. So they then changed it to 2023. California applied for and received um, an ability to delay it, and so California didn't become fully compliant in terms of having gone out and looked at everyone's program until March of 2024. Um, so it has been a long trip, almost 10 years, for the home and community based waiver regulations to come into play. Now, California has gone out through the 21 regional centers, some of them doing it themselves, some of it contracting, some of them doing some of both, and come out to every facility. And in coming out to every facility, they made sure that people were in compliance. They weren't in compliance. They helped develop a corrective plan, and hopefully everybody is now in compliance. But the federal government, in approving California's planning, has said part of your plan must include a way that you're going to go out and monitor to make sure people continue to be in compliance over time. So great people are managed to meet all the requirements by 2024, but what's happening in 2025, 26, 20, et cetera? So they want an ongoing document that regional center or some delegation that regional center makes to go out every year and assure that you continue to maintain your compliance and are working towards best practice. So, as we so well know, things change over time. And what is best practice today may change tomorrow, and what the rules are. So, this is going to be an ongoing process where they're going to continue to be looking at your compliance with the rules. Now, Regional Center has developed two documents that they're looking at using. And in looking at using means that they would like your all feedback to make sure that these documents are relevant. So if you see things here in these documents that you would like to see changed, speak up today or get a hold of Leslie, who is on this webinar this morning, and let her know what you think would be a better way to present. So if you look at one of the questions and you're thinking in terms of the individuals that you serve, this might be a little bit confusing for people to understand the question, and there may be a better way to phrase it. Let her know so that we can go ahead and make sure that it's optimal. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are two parts to this assessment. One of them is a consumer assessment, the individuals you serve, and the other one is a one that they're looking at your facility and how you are operating your program to make sure that you are meeting the rules, because it's not about what your facility is, it's about how you're providing the services to the individuals who are you're serving, is what we really are taking a look at. Now, Leslie, is the consumer interview like one individual from each facility, or are you planning on looking at interviewing all of the individuals at a program?
Thank you, Jeff. That's a very good question. And so our goal is to interview at least one of the individuals. If there's more that want to participate, the more the merrier. But our goal is to at least interview and have that conversation with at least one individual in the at service.
Okay. Now, I did some of the assessments for Kern this last year, and whenever possible, I tried to get a group of consumers to sit around the table and ask the whole group. And it was interesting because there were sometimes varied answers, and sometimes one would sort of take over and sort of become dominant and would answer for the group, and so you got different dynamics. But I found that was sort of helpful to get more than one individual. Other times there was only one individual there, or one individual chose to be the spokesperson for the group, and so it varied from residential facility to residential facility, from day program to day program. So depending on who I was evaluating and who was available, it was done differently. So anyway, so this is the proposed form. And again, changes are being solicited. If you see things that you'd like to see different, is that readable in that size, or would it be helpful to be a little bit larger?
Jeff, it works out just fine. We do have the option on our ends to expand the screen if we need to get it closer for us. You're good.
Well, I'll just zoom it up a little bit here. Is that better?
Definitely.
Okay. All right.
That is better.
Okay. So it obviously asks for the consumer's name. If you're going to be doing a group of consumers, you would want to put down all of them. The UCI, Universal Client Identifier, is what that stands for. And everybody has a 7-digit number that is unique to the regional center system. Then the service provider, that would be you, who you are, obviously your address, and then who from the regional center or delegate group that they're using to do the interview. And with each of these questions, it goes back to the federal requirement where it comes from. So it's sort of, so the first one, do you go to the community to do things you like to do? Do you get to help decide what activities you get to do, or restaurant you go to. So it's asking people if they're out and in the community with integration on community activities. So that would meet the federal requirement number one, access to the community. So if people say, yes, we go out regularly, that would potentially meet the requirement. Now, again, in meeting this requirement, we want to make sure that people are being, involved in activities with non-disabled individuals. So are they interacting with the community as a whole? If somebody says, I don't say to my wife, well, I'm going to go out into the community now. That's not something that we normally language that we use. So what we're talking about is I'm going to be doing this activity. And in doing this activity, I'm going to be interacting with these individuals. So we really want to try to make sure that in taking the persons that you serve out and about, that includes some sort of meaningful interaction with others. And that meaningful interaction being persons who are non-disabled, who are part of the rest of the community. Do you get to choose who you go on outings or errands with? And again, is it a situation where the whole group goes? So if it's a residential facility, all 4 residents go out and, well, I want to stay behind or I want to do something different. And you're told, no, everybody goes, we go as a group versus, wait a minute, no, I like going with, Sam, the DSP who comes in the afternoon, and I like to go out on trips with him and George, another resident, and the 3 of us go out and do some stuff in the community. So are you able to do activities with people you want to do it with? And again, that's an issue of access and to the community, which is federal requirement number one. And then when other people go out in the community to do activities, do you have to go, even if you don't want to? And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So one of the challenges that you sometimes have, if you're a DSP or a provider, it's staffing. If you're staffed at, a 1-to-3 ratio, a 1-to-4 ratio, and so there's one person on for the 4 individuals, this is one of those things where, meeting the requirement and meeting staffing issues can be a challenge. So, I think you need to look at this and figure out what's the best way you can give people choices, but also, meet the Title 17 and 22 standards. And, this is an area that a lot of people are wrestling with right now as we move forward with these new regulations. Okay. Are you currently attending a day employment program? Do you like your day employment program? So again, if for those individuals that you're serving, this survey may be taking place at the day program or at the employment program. This survey may also take place at the residential program. So it's sort of self-evident if you're going out to a day program and ask this question. Yeah, of course. But it may also be that they're attending a different type of program. So it really depends on the situation. Do you manage your own money? If you do not, do you know how to ask for your money? So again, this is access to the community. If there is P&I, if you're a residential provider and you're handling the individual's personal and incidental funds from their SSI, SSA, and you're giving them money, maybe a weekly allowance or on demand, or how that works, that will be asked of the residents, and are they satisfied with how their money is being utilized? Uh, Best if you do something along the lines of the making sure that it gets put into the individual plan, so that for individuals who are um, in your facility, so if you're a residential facility, uh, how that money is to be provided is all agreed to in their person-centered plan as part of their IPP. So that really does spell it out. But again, that's access to the community. People have access to their money, gives them access to the community. Do you get to help decide what dental, medical, or banking services you receive? So, you know, if you're, let's say, again, this is not as relevant to day services, and just as the P&I one above is not as relevant to day services as it is to residential services. But there, in the past, there has been some uh, at times challenges where an individual will come into a facility and the facility says, "Oh, we use the certain clinic. We all of our clients go to Clinica Sierra Vista." And the individual says, "Well, but I, have been going to Omni for years, and I have this particular doctor that I see at that clinic." So they need to be given that choice. Same thing with dental. If somebody has a specific person that they choose to use, that needs to be made available to them. Uh, did you choose to live in the residence home or participate at your day program? Were you able to visit other places to live or participate in before you selected this one? Now, this is number 2 on the choice of setting. Now, many of the individuals that I spoke to when I went out last year had been in the program for some time. And in some cases, they didn't remember, what it was or how it occurred, or it occurred years ago when people were sort of okay. Let's say, California Mentor has an opening in this particular program, and so we'll start you there in 2 weeks, or and individuals didn't always have. Uh, Choices, or there may only been a very limited number of vacancies in residential or day, and so the person went to where the vacancy had occurred. Um, as we become more sophisticated with these new rules, I think the choices that people will be given in regards to where they want to live or where they want to receive their programming will become much better. And we also will do a better job of making sure that prior to going someplace, that people are given options and are shown different programs, and so that they can make sure that they get into the one that they really prefer. Um, uh, all right. The next one being, are you able to use the phone, open your mail, and receive devices in private? This has to do with your, again, number 2 or number 3, to be treated well. This is pretty much, a standard, and has been in Title 17 and 22 for a number of years. So this is not a new standard, but it does pertain to the ability to someone to have privacy in receiving their mail and other things that in regards to being in the facility. Hang on just 1 second here. All right. The Did you choose to live in the residential home, participate in the day? Okay. All right. Moving down. Are you able to keep things that are important to you, valuable, in a safe place or locked up? And again, the right to be treated well. So if you have personal belongings, do you have a place where you can lock up? Now, most places have like chests of drawers if it's a residential, or nightstands. Sometimes the nightstands are lockable, sometimes they're not. It's a good idea to have either a lockbox or a nightstand or one drawer in the chest of drawers that are lockable. If the client requests that, you would want to make that available to them. A lot of the day centers that I have visited have lockers. So that people can, when they get to the program, bring in their own lock or it's a combination lock, and they're able to keep their own personal possessions where they would like to have them. So that is something that goes along with being treated well. So that's a question that people will be asked. If you are unhappy or uncomfortable with your provider, do you feel safe enough to tell someone? Do you know what to do or who to talk with if you have a problem? Now, what I found when I went out in previous evaluations is that most people feel like there's one person at their residence or at their day program that they feel comfortable talking with. And most individuals that I interviewed specifically said, yes, I can talk to, George, the facility administrator, or I can talk to Mary, who is the evening DSP, or at the day program, I can talk to the supervisor for my group, and and that's what I would be asking for was, is there some individual that you feel comfortable that you can share that you have a concern with? And then the next question I oftentimes ask was, have you done that before? Have you ever shared with them that you were unhappy? And if you did it get taken care of? And was make sure that there was no retribution, that nothing came out of it that was negative to you for making your concern known, because these have to be done in a non-prejudicial manner, and so that people can make complaints or share concerns that they have. Do you make decisions? Do you make decisions about what daily activities you want to participate in? So again, going out to day programs, for example, some of them had very specific prescribed schedules. That from 9 to 10 we do this class, from 10 to 11 we do this class, from 12, and the person who was attending, if they said, well, no, from I don't particularly want to do a cooking class. What other option can I have? If this is not what my choice is, I'm going to tell you what my choice is, and how are you going to go about doing that? So we really need to sit down with the individuals that we're serving and really share with them how we are integrating what they have to say and wanting to do into their activities. And that's also pertains to residential in terms of what is the schedule. I would go out and sometimes I would see a home where let's say the individuals would get home at from their day or work site 3:30 in the afternoon. Well, okay, we all just sort of decompress until 4, and then from 4 to 5 we do this. At 5 we sit down and have dinner. At 6 o'clock it's TV, and then or games, and then at 8:30 it's everybody in the room, and 9 o'clock is bedtime. And again, you can't do regimenting like that. You need to talk to the people and say, okay, you're now home from your day activity. What would you like to do this afternoon and evening, or sit down and plan for the week? Many facilities sit down and have a weekly meeting and do activities for the week. Okay, questions on any of this so far? I'm just moving quite along very fast because it's a whole nother tool that we need to look at, and so I want to spend about half an hour on each. So, any questions? All right, so it's sort of self-explanatory. Okay. Do you participate in your individual service plan meeting Does your service plan include things that are important to you? Now, again, when you say service plan, some clients will look at you and, okay, what are you talking about? So we want to make sure that we let them know that the service plan is their annual meeting, their IPP, so that they know that we're talking about, when we all sat down, when the people from your residential program, your day program, if they have family that's involved, your let's say maybe your parents came and we all sat down and we talked about your plan for this next year. Oh yeah, I remember that now. So sometimes it takes a little bit of explanation as to what that is, and that is a requirement that is part of the choice of services and supports. So we want to make sure that the individual was a decision maker in terms of the plan that that gets put down, because everything emanates from that plan. As we have discussed in the past, it's almost like going to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, you have bronchitis and here is an antibiotic, and you go to the pharmacy and the pharmacy fills that antibiotic specifically as it's written in the prescription. That's how an IPP is supposed to be, so that when you sit down and you're writing an IPP, that's supposed to be very clearly defined on what's going on. And then when you go out and based off the individual's choice, a program is found that can meet that individual's goals, and it's provided, the services is provided specific to how that plan reads. And so when I was going out, I was not only looking to see that there was a plan in place, but also that that plan was being followed. So I talked to the individuals about, okay, your plan says that this is going to be occurring. Is this really happening during your week? If you want to receive different services or change some of your services, do you know what to do or who to speak with to make a request? And again, if someone's not happy with their plan or wants to see their plan changed, they need to know that they can come and talk to you. In some cases, some of the individuals I spoke to when I did assessments would tell me, oh, I'd contact my service coordinator. So they knew that they could also contact the individuals at Kern Regional Center as well as people in their home. Now, the way the Lanterman Act reads, and this is consistent with the way we want this done, is that an individual can ask for the IPP to be reconvened at any time, and it must be occur within 30 days. So, we talk about developing a yearly plan. The law actually says it can be done as much as once every 3 years. For people on waiver, it has to be reviewed yearly. But so we're going to really talk about a yearly plan. But if after 3 months I decide I don't like what, the program I'm in or the residents, or I'd like it, but I would like to be doing something different during the time I'm there, I can ask for that meeting to be reconvened. And it can be reconvened and it can be written into my plan, something different than what it currently reads. Are you able to access any common area in the home or program? So again, kitchens, closets, laundry rooms, garage, etc. So, sometimes I've been to some residential facilities where the provider lives in the home. It's a small family care home, and they may say, well, our bedroom is our personal space, and we respect that. But those areas that are common areas, some places also lock up, consistent with Title 22, cleaning supplies and other, materials. That's acceptable as well. But if it's a common area, it needs to be available to everyone. And same thing with day services. If there's areas that are not like administrative offices or other things that are specific to a different function, the individual should have access to throughout the facility. Um, um, do you know your rights? Do you know where they are posted in your home employment or program? So, I oftentimes ask individuals, do you know what your rights are? And if you do, where would you go to if you had a complaint? And I went out to one facility and they said, oh, yeah, sure. We have the rights posted right here on the wall. And they had a copy that was from like 1987 or something. Yeah. And much of it was the same, but it wasn't all the same. The phone number of who they should contact in case they had a complaint was outdated. So you want to make sure that you have a current rights form posted in your facility. Some residences or day activity programs yearly at the IPP meeting give individuals a copy of their rights. And I think that's probably a good idea so that you make sure that everybody, okay, it's time for your annual meeting. And at the beginning of this meeting, we just want to make sure that you know what your rights are. So let's go through these really quickly here. And here's a copy to make sure you have it. And right down there at the bottom is the phone number, somebody you can call if you feel like you need to talk to someone, so that you really do make sure. Because again, it varied when I went out. Some individuals said, yeah, that's that thing on the wall over there. Other people sort of looked at me and they weren't sure what that was. So you want to make sure that when the individuals in your facility or your home are answering this question, that they really do understand what. All right, moving along. Oops. Is there anything about this service that you don't like? Do you feel safe? Does your direct service professionals or provider treat you with respect? Is there anything you would like to tell me? So again, asking the individual if they feel comfortable. I oftentimes, in some cases, the providers were sitting in the room when the client, or the individuals were answering the questions, and I would sort of discourage that, and I would ask if I could speak to the individuals by themselves without the providers there, to make sure I got answers. Although in some cases, I also found that individuals were giving me or weren't sure of the answer, and asking the provider was able to clarify some things or help the individual understand. So it really varies but especially on a question like this, I really would like to talk to the individual independently to find out what it is that they're thinking about this, because I don't want somebody to feel like they couldn't honestly tell me that there was something they didn't like because they were afraid that it would, create problems with them and the provider. Now, the next group of questions are specifically just for the residential service providers, because as you know, there are 10 areas to the final rules. First 5 pertain to everybody, and also number 10 pertains to everybody, which has to do with accessibility. But 6, 7, 8, and 9 are specific to residential facilities. So, so question number 17 on this form: do you have a residential admissions agreement you signed to live here? Do you know where it's located? Do you know who to speak to if you want to move? And again, I found that many individuals didn't really know what the residential form was, and we really had to go back and discuss it. all the providers that I talked to had those in their files. Uh, whether the individual knows that that's there and what their rights are in terms of the admissions agreement was somewhat spotty. And I think that's something that an area that you can really look at in terms of talking with the residential persons in your home about, wait a minute, if you're not happy here, you have the right to leave. These are some of the other rights that you have under this agreement. And this is basically like a lease agreement. And, and this spells out what your rights are within this home. And then again, for residential services, many of the newer homes that are being developed, almost all of them, have individual rooms. But the traditional model, and the model that has been out there for many years, and it's still really an acceptable model, although I think it's being discouraged, is a roommate model. And so one of the questions you will be asking, or get asked if you have a residential facility, is do you have a roommate? Now, in those facilities where this isn't relevant, you just move on to the next question. But did you get a choice to your roommate? And do you know who to speak to if you want to change roommates? And in most cases, what I found is it really, for residents who were moved years ago, no, they weren't necessarily given a choice. This is where the vacancy is. We're going to move you into this room. Over the years, maybe sometimes someone's moved out, and the individual says, "Hey, I'd rather live with George than with Sam," and then they move within the facility. Or sometimes people are given a choice, but more often than not, it really varies. So that you find some in more so in newer residential placements, choice is much more likely to have occurred. For those individuals who've been living in residential facilities for a longer period of time, that wasn't as much of a concern in the past in terms of placement as it is today, as the rules have changed, as we've given individuals more rights to make decisions about their lives. This has become an important area. Can you close and lock your bedroom door? Do you have a key to your bathroom? And so we want to make, or to your bedroom, excuse me. You want to make sure that the individual can have privacy in their own room. Now, Leslie shared with me a story about going out to one facility where the client shared that they had a key, and they said that this key not only fits my door, it fits everybody else's door. And, no, that's not privacy then. We want to make sure that if an individual is given a key, that's their key. Now, I've had some providers who shared with me their concerns about, well, the individual is going to lose the key. They don't really want a key. It needs to be made available to them as an option. Some individuals say, I don't want my room locked. The other thing too is if a staff person has a key as well, which it's probably a good practice to make sure that there's a key just in case of emergencies that somebody can get into that room, that only certain people have access to that room. So this is not made available to all staff, but specific designated staff. And that, again, should possibly be written into the plan as to whom can go into the client's room when. Normally, it's a best practice to knock and request entry before you use a key to enter the individual's room. And, as a rule of thumb, this is something that the way the rules are written, because I've had some providers saying, well, what if we offer it to the person and they say no? Well, again, it has to be an affirmative. You start from the position of, here you can have a key. And then if the person says no, then you don't need to provide that. But it's not like you sort of try to discourage them or dissuade them. And only if they ask for it, do you give it to them. You have to start from the position of, here you have a right to a key. So it's a positive. Can you choose to lock your bedroom, your bathroom door? And again, that's an issue of privacy. I went out to one facility. Oh no, we don't allow the individuals to lock the bathroom door just in case something might happen. And staff can have a key in case of an emergency, but individuals should be allowed to have dignity and respect when using the toilet, showering, bathing, etc. Are you able to eat what you want to eat and at times that you want? So again, do people have an access to food within the facility? Now, I did have a situation where someone had some real challenges with blood sugar, the diabetes, and when this rule first came out, and the provider said, "Well, I guess you have access to whatever you want." That person's blood sugar skyrocketed, and their A1C scores, which had been managed fairly well, went up quite a bit. And there are the ability to place restrictions on individuals' diets if it's medically indicated. So if the physicians specifically says that, and it is discussed at the individual plan meeting, agreed to by all, and placed in the plan, it can be done. There are a set of rules that are part of the final rules, which specifically talk about how you go about doing those restrictions. And if anybody needs those, they can contact us at Bakersfield ARC. We can get you a copy of those rules. If you go to the DDS website, they are on there. And I'm sure Leslie can give you those as well. But if you do need to restrict something from somebody within these rights, you can do that. But it has to be a team approach. It has to be evaluated regularly. There's a whole procedure that has to be done. You just can't arbitrarily decide, well, we're not feeding this sort of food because of health issues in the facility. People have a right to make choices. Okay, so Leslie just put down the summary.
I was going to ask to get a copy of that. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, no problem, Dr.
I just dropped it in the chat.
Okay, yeah. There's a series of, I think, 5 or 6 different things that you need to do. You have to show it's the least restrictive method of providing for that person. You need to reevaluate it regularly. The person has to agree to it. But you can, if all agree and it's written into the plan, and their restrictions can be done. So if you do have an individual, let's say, who, like I said, is diabetic, there's some individuals who have Prader-Willi syndrome and have issues specific to binge eating. There's some other times that this might be a concern as somebody who is maybe grossly obese and is on a specific diet. Then we want to make sure that we're respectful of both their rights to food, but also for their health and safety as well.
Hey, Jeff, quick question regarding that. Sorry. In regards to that, I kind of run into this kind of similar issue where I have a health and safety matter. Well, at least in my eyes, it is, where we're trying to get an individual to clean their room. They're a really bad hoarder. They do nothing but eat food in there and just trash the place. It looks really bad. And to me, it's becoming a health and safety issue. So would that be considered a reason to modify the requirements to the IPP? Because he's not going to agree to clean his room. Like, we've been trying, and we got the behaviorists involved, and we have a whole bunch of people involved in trying to get this individual to clean his room due to the health and safety matter, but he does not want to. And again, he's like, it's his right, but at the same time, when do we say it's their right versus their health and safety?
And then 2 things. Well, first of all, John, I'll get to your question in a minute. I think first and foremost, education. I mean, talking with the individual. I know this is, I'm sure you've done this, Dante, but really sharing with the individual how it's affecting his potential health, that he could get potential potentially sick from that, and also if it's affecting the other residents in the home, because they have a right to a clean and safe environment. And so if there's an odor and that odor is permeating into the hall and other things, then we really do want to take a look at how we do this. This is something I would get the whole team. So getting the service coordinator, getting your behaviorist, getting if there's family involved, getting the individual, getting some of your DSPs, all around the table, and really discussing to see if there are changes that can be made. Now, you say he doesn't want to make the change. Is there some reason that, is this something that's occurred over time, that he's always been this way? Is he developed this way?
He's kind of always been this way. He came from his last placement. It was similar situation at his last placement. He doesn't want to do anything but play video games and just be in his room. But it's getting to the point where, like I say, his clothes all over the place, bowel movement, smell, like you're saying. And we had this meeting, and when we had the meeting with the team, at that time, he's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then when it's time to do it, he's like, no, get out of my room, and slamming the door. So when it's time to have the meetings, he's agreeing to it. When we have everybody, the behaviorist, the service coordinator, and everybody. But when it comes down to actually doing the cleaning at the time that we're ready to clean, he's like, no, he throws tantrums, he slams the door. So it's like, you're telling us yes just to kind of appease us at the time for the meeting, but when it's time to do it, he's like, no, it's my right. So
with rights come responsibility. And when someone says this is my right, but they're creating a health issue for themselves, potentially for others, then we need to look at whether that is a denial of rights, or a restriction, I guess, in this case. And that's something that the team needs to sit down and look at. Now, ideally, he's obviously not motivated. This is not something that he sees that's important in his life. And I know, really working with your behaviors to see if there's some way that you can to try to find something that he likes, or that would motivate him to do some of that, would be a way to go. But if you can't seem to find anything, what it talks about in the restricting someone's rights is that you've tried lesser restrictions and they have not worked. So if you could document that we've done this, we've done this, we've done that, then you can use a more restrictive type setting. It does talk about the individual has to agree to it, and it doesn't sound like this individual will agree to it. So, this is where you may need to get the client's rights advocate, through the department. Through the California Disability Rights, involved in the meeting as well. And and so because you want, if you're going to take a more restrictive type of way to work with this individual, you want everybody on board with that. So you don't want anybody coming back and then second guessing you. Wait a minute, you denied this person his right, and so you want to be able to say, wait a minute, we're very clearly trying to provide for this person's rights, but we're also looking at his and others' health and safety. And so doing a good job of documenting what you've done if you're moving towards a restrictive type situation.
We've been doing that.
Okay.
We're definitely doing that. So
good. Now, John, what was your concern? Could you speak up for a minute here? I'm having some difficulty getting the chat. So, John, what was it that you were asking, John Noriega?
So I can read it. I think he might have an issue with his mic. So John's question was, what if a restriction indicating a denial of personal rights is written in their IPP? Should there be other documentation justifying the denial?
Yeah, like I say, you need to show that you've tried lesser restrictions and that it's time framed. So that like every couple of months, every 3 months, whatever the document says, we're going to try to back off and see if we can get some better, response. So you really go back and take a look at those, rules specifically related to the restrictions. And
Jeff,
yeah, was somebody asking something there? Okay, so go back and look at those restrictions and see what it specifically says on there. And what I always encourage is not only do you want to put it in the plan, but then you want to also have documentation in that person's ongoing ID notes. You want to address it at their quarterly meeting. And continue to have it out there. So if somebody comes back and is looking behind and saying, well, why did you do this? Here's your documentation. Hey, this was brought up. It doesn't seem okay. Not a problem, John. Well, anyway, so we will make sure that it is documented. Not only did the team meet, and this was decided on, but we looked at lesser restrictions. We looked at ways that we could deal with this without having to put this full restriction on, and that didn't work. And we tried this other thing, and that didn't work. So we tried 2 or 3 things, and they didn't work. So that's why we've gone to this. As time goes on, we're trying to back off, and this seems to have worked. This doesn't seem to have worked. And so we were able to back off a little bit here, but not over here. And so you've got in your record a pretty good indicator of what's working and what isn't working. And it's being assessed regularly. And that's really the best way to do, whenever possible, you obviously want to avoid restrictions, but when those do become necessary, you want to make sure that you are clearly following what the home and community-based waiver requirements are for those restrictions, and that you're documenting them well. And and looking at it, whether those restrictions continue, that you don't put restrictions in place and then leave them there for the rest of the time if that person's in your facility. You want to see if that will make a difference over time. Do you have family and friends come to visit you at your home whenever you want? I missed one here. Do you have to go to bed or wake up at certain times? And again, if some facilities say, okay, quiet hours at 9 or 10, but if somebody wants to stay up longer, they can. In many cases, individuals have to get up early for their transportation to get them to their program during the day or to work. And so that may, necessitate going to bed earlier, but you can't really put restrictions on it per se. Okay, now it's 10 to 11, and we only really got through the one document. So we can do one of 2 things. I'm available to stay on. Do people want to stay on and work through the other document? It would take probably at least a half an hour to 45 minutes. We could go ahead and Valerie could make sure that you got the CEUs for the full amount of time that you were on. Is that kind of the direction people would like to go then?
I'll stay.
Same
right.
as well.
Okay, let me see if I can get the other document.
I know for John, he was trying to unmute. I sent him an unmute request. I think he might add a question. Hopefully, if he can't unmute, he can put it in the chat, and we'd love to answer that or get that resolved.
Okay, let me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello? Hello? Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Okay. I got an echo here, so forgive me, but I'm using my colleague's device because my microphone is still off. So
So hold on
apologize.
a second. We're going to get a lot of feedback. Just turn your volume down on your personal computer all the way, or mute it or some sort on the other one, and we won't get the
Okay,
feedback.
how's this? Can you guys hear me?
Sounds better. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll keep it brief. In my chat, I wanted to know about um, denial of rights. And obviously, as you were saying, Jeff, there are times where, there has to be some restrictions based on the individual situation. So my question had to do is if it's written in the IPP, so if that situation is kind of addressed in the form of written in the IPP, and you may have answered this and I might have missed you on this answer. Does it in there, or are there other documentation that must be shown or available in order to follow through, in order to implement what's written in the IPP?
I tend to think that you want to continue to show what you've been doing with that individual. So in your ID notes that you keep for your facility, in your quarterly report, you want to address the restrictions that have occurred for that individual, and going back to the rules that are in the final rules for restrictions, address each one of those. So here we've looked at a lesser restriction. We've continued to check in with the client. We've done this, we've done that, so that you show that you. So not only it's not a finite one time, you just put it into the IPP annual review
But
document.
if it's written a certain, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if it's written a certain way in the IPP, we are to implement it in that way, correct?
Right, right. But it needs to be reviewed, and at some point, if the individual is doing better, you're going to want to modify the IPP.
So basically, notify the service coordinator and ask to
Right,
have a planning team meeting and
right,
modify it, or
right,
ask to modify. Okay,
right. So that
gotcha.
to bring it down, or could sometimes work the other way. Unfortunately, you may need to even put greater restriction. Hopefully not. So yeah. Again, because this is an issue of rights, and rights is a very, very important area in the
Yeah.
for individuals. The more documentation that you do, the better off you are. Yeah, because
Right.
that way you know the old that old expression about covering your backside. You want to make sure that if anybody comes back and questions you as to why you did what you did, you can show that you were very conscientious and comprehensive in terms of what you did, and you did it in a very respectful manner, which tried to maximize the person's rights. At the same time, you've put the restrictions on them.
Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. And I apologize for my
No,
technical
no.
issues. Thank
Okay,
you.
so we're going to keep going then, and like I said, well, I'll try to get you out by 11:30. And so this is the second form. Can everybody see this pretty well? All right, let's see if I can make it a little bigger. It's about, I think, as big as I can make it, and still have it on the page. Again, this is vendor name, provider, all that. The demographics are the same as the other one, and two sets of questions for each one. First of all, it has to do with number one, which is choices, and where it says 42 CRF, and then sections, and it gives all those numbers and letters and abbreviations. That's the federal code. So if you ever want to look at the final rules as written in the federal the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, that's where you'd find that. So if you're one of those wonks that likes to read government stuff, there it is. So the first one is optimize independence and choice in daily living, lifestyle preferences, activities, and transportation. And then it talks about that is the HCBS rules 1 and 4. Now, there are two things here. There's one is yes or no to being met, and then two, was the following criteria modified based on individual needs? So if for some reason you had to make some changes, which again would need to be documented for what those changes were, you would want to do that. And then if there would be the over in the right hand area, there's a box there where the person from community services at regional center or third party individual who's coming out to do your assessment would go ahead there and could make comments specific to what was going on with your thing. Hopefully the comments they're making is great job, and and you're doing a wonderful approach to this, but in some cases they may be making suggestions or finding that there needs to be some changes made. When to come and go unless indicated as a support need in their IPP. So can individuals come, leave the facility, come back, etc. Now, for some individuals, depending on their ability to independently use the community, they may need supervision when they go out in the community. So this may be different for some people in your facility, or they may have, if you're a facility that works with persons who are of a forensic nature, there may be some restrictions on their ability to come and go. Then you would again look at that the next box if you have to make something specific to that individual. And the planning team is a really good place to decide how much independence someone has. Obviously, some individuals have gone out, used the city bus, can go places, can navigate the community very well. And that would be one thing. As someone who maybe is more severely cognitively impaired and would not really be able to independently use the community, this question takes on a different view. And know what to do if they want to change an activity, meal, service support, etc. What do people know what to do? And again, talking to the provider, good idea if you're a provider to have something in writing as part of your program design or in some document that you have on site, your like an operations manual that specifically talks about how you can help individuals if they ask to make changes, who to talk to. When I was at Bakersfield ARC, we specifically had a or I believe they still have, is a client handbook that individuals receive when they first come into the program. And it has a specific section in there about how they can go ahead and ask for changes, file a grievance, et cetera, to make sure, so making sure that people know if they want to have changes. Options to control personal resources such as money or items unless indicated as a support need in their IPP. So if someone is having, and this is primarily in residential facilities, most day services don't control people's money or their items. But if you are having to control certain things, especially finances for someone, needs to be written into their plan and how that's going to be done and how that individual can access funds if they so desire. And again, it gives them the federal requirements. In living arrangements or participation a day, or participation, a day or evening program includes exploration options for non-disabled specific services. So this is, are you giving people an option to be with people who are not disabled? So there are some individuals who, the only people that they contact with, other than their staff, are all other people with disabilities. So they go to a day program during, waking hours, and then during the rest of the time, they're in a residential facility, and there really is no interaction with non-disabled. So we want to make sure that people have the option to be around non-disabled people when when they're out and about in the community. In living arrangements are okay. Does the IPP include setting options, including non-disability specific, that were considered prior to selecting the service, and is based on the individual's needs and preferences? And again, this is something new, and the service coordinator will be working with you on developing this and putting it into the plan. That historically this was not there. So if you're looking at an IPP that was written a year or two ago, in all likelihood it doesn't have this. But now with the new format that I understand yesterday they were saying at the vendor advisory meeting, mid-January, it went fully live at Kern. So now all IPPs will be written in the new standardized format. This will be in there. And so you should see that this being done. And I would encourage you to also bring it up in the meeting. Does the individual include settings that are not with non-disabled? Because that's a big thing in the home and community-based waiver final rules. And part of that emanates from the Americans with Disabilities Act and the UMSED decisions, which are, previous, one being law, one being a court decision, which really talks about giving people options for non-disability services. And the federal government has sued a few states, and specifically for their segregated day programs. So when you have programs that are all just people with disabilities, in a couple of cases, I know Oregon has been sued, a few other states have been sued specific to that. Change in administration in Washington now, that would probably be changing as well. But historically, there's been a real push to try to look at a much greater integration in the community. Again, for residential settings, and some of the stuff is redundant, but these are questions that are being asked to you. The first set of questions are being asked to the resident, the individual in your program. These are questions that are going to be asked to you in roommates or choice of private accommodations. So they're going to be asking about that, whether the person has the ability to have private accommodations or roommate. Again, decision making, and it gives you the federal requirement that's there. And are individuals included in decisions that affect them? So you want to make sure that it's documented that they actively participated in their IPP, and when you're doing your quarterly reporting, that you've got something in there about that the individual was a decision maker about activities and programming and services and their access to the community. Does each individual have written residence admissions agreement that has the same responsibilities and protection for eviction that tenants have under landlord-tenant laws in the state? And again, that pertains to residential services. Many of you who have day programs do have a quasi admissions agreement into the into your program. Title 22 does have certain requirements in regards to that area, but the federal government is very specific about wanting to make sure that people can't be just summarily evicted from their residential setting. Invited and invite others to planning meetings, and their input is recorded. Summary of the planning meeting indicates input from individual, staff, family, and KRC representatives. Yeah, one of the things I would encourage you to do is not only do you want to, you're waiting for KRC to send you that IPP from the meeting, and hopefully now that it's the more standardized form, you will get it sooner. Because that was one of the things that when I was going out and doing assessments, sometimes the person's birth month was a month or two prior to me coming out there, and we still not gotten the IPP yet. And when I was looking to make sure that all the IPPs were current, that wasn't current because it was last year's. Hopefully you will be getting that sooner. But one of the things you might want to do is take some notes at the IPP meeting and put down, okay, we this is what we spoke about. This is what the Samuel's parents suggested for Samuel. This is what Samuel said that he would like. This is what the day service provider was suggesting for meaningful services, and what Sam likes and doesn't like. This is what the residential provider. So, and it doesn't have to be, again, a book, but maybe just some notes, because again, that shows that you've a summary of planning team meeting. So you have that, because the document that comes out doesn't necessarily say who says what or what. So it's a good idea to have something a little bit more that so you can show that what was discussed at the planning team meeting encompassed everybody's input, and how that input was incorporated into the final plan. Ask how they like to spend time, including where they go, what they learn, and foods they eat. And when they mean they mean they're talking about the residents or the people in your program. So are you asking them? And regularly, and again, documenting that, okay, we had and some people do this as a group, a weekly meeting where we discuss this. Mary suggested that she would like to, once a week go out to the food court at the mall. George prefers, going to the CALM, the animal zoo museum weekly, et cetera. So you've got down documentation about what people are asking for. Ask how they like to spend their time, including where they go, what to learn, and foods they eat. Again, planning. There's the federal rule. Individuals.
Hi, Jeff. Could you scroll a little bit down?
Yeah. Where to?
Okay. I don't know if it's just my screen that's frozen.
I'm scrolling. Yeah. I think it might be.
No,
I'm on plans right now. 3.0. You see it?
No, it is frozen.
No, I think it's frozen on.
Frozen on my end.
Let's
see.
It's on my end as well.
Let me try to do this.
You need to open the.
Okay, let me try the sharing again.
You're gonna try, but you need to open the file in order for it to allow you to scroll and us to see it.
Okay, you see it now? Let's see if it'll move down.
Three
okay,
plans.
now it's moving down, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry about that. Like I say, we're back up here to number 3. Okay, individuals took part in the person-centered planning, so we want to make sure you got documentation that your individuals are there. I did not see anyone who did not include the individual in the planning process. But you also want to make sure that they not only were there, but they also gave input into what they would like and what they would dislike. And you want to sort of document that they were a participant, not just someone sitting in a chair at that meeting. Individuals are informed of their rights and complaint grievance procedures in a preferred language. So if people speak a language other than English, Spanish being the primary, secondary language here, but there are other languages that are spoken in our community as well. And so if they do speak a different language, we want to make sure they get that. And again, having a copy of the client rights, also possibly having a copy of your internal grievance procedure available at that meeting is probably a good idea. It is a good idea to share with the individuals on a yearly basis. Settings are to support individuals to have freedom from coercion and restraint. If the setting has a policy of utilizing restraints, it is modified plan documents in the IPP. And again, restraints for the most part are governed by Title 17, Title 22. There's other places as well, and they're primarily for postural that are medically indicated, that are for like keeping somebody like maybe upright in a wheelchair or something along those lines, using restraints for physical activity is not permitted. And if there is a need to utilize any type of restraint, it needs to be documented. And most facilities have or should have a policy or procedure specific to restraints. I've been to many that said we do not use restraints ever. Others had trained their staff in management of assaulted behavior and so there are specific rules about what you can use and when you can use that, and then that's documented that they have that in place. So depending on what you as a facility decide, and especially if you're addressing issues related to like physical assault or other things, you need to have a very specific procedure about what you will and will not do in those situations to protect you and to protect the individuals that you're serving. I am a strong component or like to see individuals who have persons in their home or in their who may become assaultive to have management of assaultive type training. There are about 3 or 4 out there. I don't endorse one versus another, but I think, and then having that as part of your procedure and having that written into your procedures and having it in people's plans is the best way to go. So we want to try to make sure that people are, and coercion is another thing. I've been out to facilities where someone has said to somebody, oh, see these, tennis shoes that you have. If you lived in any other home, you wouldn't have these. We give you these, so you need to stay here because, we're the best facility that ever was. You don't want to be treating people disrespectfully. You want to make sure that their rights are maintained and that they know that they have choices about where they live, and you don't try to unduly influence them in that choice. Includes a statement of individual needs, preferences, methods of communication, cultural identity, hopes and dreams, and document likes and dislikes, importance to the individual. And again, the new IPP form really addresses this, so hopefully this will be picked up in the form. But you also want to make sure that you're respectful of people's cultural background. So if someone comes into your home and they have a certain diet that they historically have had in their family of origin or certain holidays that they celebrate, we want to be respectful of that and try to integrate that into their program. We want to make sure that we are looking at their hopes and dreams. What would they like what their likes are, what their dislikes. Yesterday at the vendor meeting, someone brought up the fact that what's important to and what's important for needs to be well defined. So what's important to the person, what do they would like, and what's important for them are both well defined. And some people, that it's an interesting concept, and we need to work on that to make sure that we're doing a good job of delineating those. Include goals and outcomes that incorporate the individual. It says them here, but I would like to see that maybe changed to individual. A little the language is a little bit awkward in a little of this, but I'm sure this will get changed as it gets sorted out. As a part of their plan for services, do individuals have an opportunity to participate in individual and group outings and activities in the community at a frequency and amount of time desired? So, are they out and about? What is your day activity program doing? What is your residential service doing that gets people into the community and active? Does the setting have a current IPP on file for all individuals? And again, when I was going out, some did not, and part of that was an issue of the delay at the regional center. Hopefully, like I said, now that this new format is out, regional center will be able to review and get the document out quicker than it has historically. Also with the large number of turnover and service coordinators and things that it's been somewhat of a challenge, and I know that the new administration is trying to address a lot of that. So hopefully that will be less of a challenge in the future. Culture and community, knowledge and support of cultural identity through identification of cultural preferences in the ISP. So as you're writing the service plan for that individual, you're talking about if they come from, have a certain cultural background, that you're respectful of that, and you're trying to incorporate that into the services and planning that you do. Holidays, food, clothing, spirituality, that people can go to the church that they want to. Years ago, I remember many of the small family care homes used to tell me that, everybody goes to my church. The provider would tell me that. And no, that's not. If someone has a specific spirituality that they would that needs to be respected. And if there are like events, like, for example, when Bakersfield ARC was out on South Union, they were right across the street from the Basque Heritage Foundation, and they would have all kinds of different events. So if somebody came from, Basque Heritage, maybe having them go out to events there at that center once in a while. It would just be an example. Let's see, opportunities to shop, run errands, attend events, see friends and family, and then you want to have documentation in your activity logs, interviews, and observations. So if you tell me, John goes with his brother some weekends, he goes with his family. On other weekends, he goes, his mom and dad. He's got a friend that he goes out with. Be able to have some documentation that shows that what indeed that individual is doing in the community. Support for maintaining relationships with family and friends. So what are you doing to try to help that person? And I've gone out to some facilities and they tell me that the person hasn't had any contact with their family in years. Well, do we help them get back into contact with the family? But maybe that family, there's a reason why they don't have contact. So it really depends on the individual and what their circumstances are. But if they also have friends, are we making arrangements to maybe have them and their friend get together at some point? Maybe go out to, coffee at a coffee shop and just spend some time together. What are we as a facility doing to try to maintain community for that individual? Support for maintaining employment or attending a day program as needed. So this is more for residential, but even within day services, what are we doing to try to encourage employment? The very first goal on the federal requirements is that to give people the option of competitive integrated employment. And so we want to make sure that we do that. Support for attending workplace activities, packing a lunch, ongoing communication with worksite supervisors. So if somebody is at a work site, making sure that we're integrating them with others at that work site. So in some cases where you have, let's say, supported employment, and sometimes there's what's called an enclave, or a group of individuals work at the site, but they're sort of segregated from everybody else at that site. We want to try to make sure that people are fully integrated in work sites. Support for maintaining employment or attending a day program is needed. Okay. Physical environments. The home or the setting is physically accessible to individuals. So we want to make sure that you meet all of the requirements for physical accessibility for the individuals that you serve. And this is for both day and residential services. Does the setting impose any restrictions inside or outside, such as delayed egress or secure perimeters? So for those of you who have a facility, if you are doing delayed egress, there are certain requirements that you have to meet, both with licensing, with regional center, and it needs to be all documented. So I've gone out to facilities where they have like a bar that you have to hit and it sets off an alarm, and then it's like 30 seconds later the door will open, so that it gives the staff a chance to respond. Usually that's a restrictive setting. Well, that is a restrictive setting, and that it can only be done under certain conditions and IPP, and usually that is reflective of individuals who need very specialized services. So for most of you, that's not something that you will encounter. In a residential home, individuals have access to food at any time. And again, that if there are restrictions on diet, that can be noted here. And so it could be access to food, but it might be carrot sticks, if that's something that a particular individual who has certain restrictions on diet would need to have in order to maintain that. So again, that could be a health and safety issues. For others, it's not a problem. So again, in my home, if I get up at 2 a.m. and decide I want to go snacking, I can do that. It's probably not the best for me, but I can do it. So we want to make sure that our individuals have that same right. Okay. And then in residential homes, individuals have privacy, which includes ability to lock bedroom doors, privacy in bathrooms, opportunity to have private conversations or use the phone in private, and furnish and decorate their rooms. So, I've gone out to a lot of different facilities, and for the most part, I've noticed that people decorate the rooms the way they want to. I have run into a few minor problems with that, but that really, for the most part, seems to be something that is respected for the clients. It's their room; they get to choose how they would like it. And then finally, and it's like I said, I told you I'd get you out here by 11:30. Comments, modifications, recommendations, or follow-ups. So the person who does the assessment will put that at the bottom here, along with maybe some comments they put on the side on specific areas. So these are the two documents in draft that Kern Regional Center is currently reviewing. Now, Leslie, are these ready to go out, or are these still not quite?
Yeah, so we are still in draft mode with these documents. I am welcoming feedback from you guys to see what other types of modifications we could add to it to make the documents flow a little bit easier, take repetitiveness out if possible, and be able to just hear you guys out if there was any concerns you had with the monitoring process.
Evidently, there was just a emergency alert on the phone here. I don't know what it. Anyways, okay. Any other comments or concerns, questions? Well, thank you. And then for those of you who stayed on to the end, make sure that when you send in your request for CEUs that you put down that you were on for the full hour and a half, and we'll make sure that you can get that. And then Marianne asked about being able to get copies of this, or how do you make suggestions, Leslie? What would you think would be the best way to do that?
So yes. So I'm thinking possibly sending out a draft of this to you all. I will probably put like across the whole page just draft so that you guys know, and it doesn't circulate as like the actual final document. But I could send this out to you guys to get your suggestions, comments. You guys are also welcome to reach out to me directly or to Jeff, and we could be able to work together to get those revisions in.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or concerns or comments? Well, thank you for sticking in there, and hopefully this has been helpful. And we look forward to positive assessments coming up this next year. And with that, I'll say goodbye to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye now.
Thank you. Nina, do you have Cage's number?